I'm sure at some time in your life you've made like a bet with some of your friends, like maybe something small, like, oh, I bet you $1 that you won't go jump off that cliff. Well, sometimes there are idiots that jump off the cliff into the water, and then you go back to your friend and say, okay, I want my $1, and they never give it to you. And that comes to the quote that a verbal contract isn't worth the paper it's written on. I like to think that if you promise someone something, that I think you should follow up in your promise. Like, let's just say your parents like tell you, oh, we're gonna go to like the zoo on Saturday. So you get really excited to looking forward to going to the zoo, having so much fun with your family or friends. Then last minute they say, oh, we can't go to the zoo today because I have work or something like that, or I don't feel like going. Then that kind of leads to disappointment. And if you keep making promises and breaking them, a lot of times that can give the other person an idea that they can't trust you anymore. So I think it's very important that if you're going to make a promise, that you should keep that promise so you don't lead to disappointment. And I think it's happened to me a couple times, but it's like little small things. Like one time my sister, she actually said to me when I was like 5 years old, I'll give you $1 if you clean the room. So I did it. And, you know, she did it to me about a lot of times over my life. Never gave me that $1. Then eventually I caught on, obviously, and told her no. So as a person who is getting like promised to do something, you can't keep falling for it. You want to put into question like, well, are you sure you're able to do it, or anything like that. So always remember, if you want to gain trust, then keep your promises. Thank you. Okay, I don't sit here.
See, she walked down the wrong aisle too.
I know.
Good morning, Richard.
How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for asking.
That extra half hour of sleep do you some good?
Did amazing.
I wish I'd had that.
You can come a little. Oh no, you can come 15 minutes late, can't you? Oh yeah.
All right, Taylor. The opening was okay. I thought you had a nice transition to the topic that you came up with, and I thought you had a pretty good thesis statement to talk about. There's not really much of a preview in the speech, but in your content you actually have a couple of ideas that you develop, and they seem fairly distinct. I thought you also had a nice vocal transition when you went to that second idea, kind of a change in your tone that helped a little bit. They're a little bit repetitive of the same idea, and I think if you know, the story with your sister, you get a little bit more detail on. The zoo story sounds, you know, kind of apocryphal, hypothetical sort of thing. I think you might even talk a little bit about some of the things that you said to your sister, or some of the ways that she teased you about that. I don't know how many times you get promised $1 and you don't get paid it. I mean, what's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me a dozen times. I think you just go, I'm very naive in that particular situation. I thought your voice projected nicely. Your energy level, I think, is a little bit low, and part of that is the pacing of the presentation. You have a few indicators, but you do tend to kind of roll the paper around in your hand while you're speaking. I think you could be a little bit more involved and engaged with your facial expressions. Same thing with the eye contact. You look up, but you're not always looking at the audience. You're sometimes looking in the audience's direction and not talking to people. The one place that I see a little bit of anxiety is the way you are rocking back and forth on the ball of your feet. For the most part, you know, for the first minute or so, it's on one side, and then for 30 seconds, it's on the other side, and then you go back to the first side again, and that just is kind of, I'm going to get that nervous energy out of there, and I think you want to control that and put it a little bit more into your presentation. I did think that you got to a pretty graceful exit and reminded us of the point that you were trying to make, which always helps us, you know, recover a little bit when there's something that it's not as strong as it could be, but it leaves a good impression, and that's definitely a good way to finish off. Merci. Brittany, if you would, get yourself a topic and send Marco in, please.